Hello, everyone. We're very excited to welcome you to our very first and hopefully one of many webinars. Today, we are sitting down with Vishal and Chris Gorgoroso, the co-founders of Element. When all of us were brainstorming topics for our first webinar, there were lots of great ideas and topics that were thrown around, but we all felt that we wanted to first introduce ourselves and the product, while also answering some of the burning questions that the industry has been asking. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. I think the biggest question, the elephant in the webinar here is, what were we thinking? What were you thinking, Vish and Chris? With all the other systems out there, all the platforms, what made you think, let's go ahead and make a new AMS?
Ooh, uh, right? There's so many options. Um, I was just reflecting on this last night, Sean, and I remember this time when I actually text messaged Chris, saying that, "Hey, I have an itch to build a new AMS." Like that's exactly literally the text message that I sent him. And there's a backstory before I send that text message. The backstory goes like. So I started this consulting practice, serving associations on Salesforce, and I'd built a partner network. And one of the partners on the network in my network reached out to me saying, "Hey, Vish, I think I have a great prospect for you, a great customer. You should reach out. They need help with lots of custom dev." And I said, "Ooh, who are they?" And he named this customer. And it just so happens, it's just a few days ago, I had done a cold outreach to the exact same customer to get on a call. And so that led us to getting on a call. And this was a great person. She was managing this instance of their Salesforce for over 6 years and had built amazing workflows and focused on getting their work done. And as she was showing me what all was set up, I was pretty impressed. But then she started putting in the ask, like, "Hey, what can we do this? Can you help me this piece?" And the question that she was asking, or what help she was wanting to help us build, was nothing but building an accounting subledger on Salesforce. And at any given point of time, when you ask me software and accounting subledger, there's only one guy I can think of, and that's Chris. And so that's what led to me messaging him, just giving him a hint, "Hey, there's something cooking over here." And so we have some back and forth, and we walk through the whole process, and eventually that customer led to funding us to develop and build our product. But there's a bit of history over there. And Chris, why don't you share your end of what happened in that conversation?
Yeah, I actually remember I was on my bike when you sent that text, and I was like, What?" Sweating and like, huh, what's going on over there? But now it was interesting going into the customer's environment and seeing what was going on. This person was that jack of all trades that you want in any company, right? They could do it all. She was handling the accounting, the membership, the administration of the environment. Like she was doing everything. So uh really talented person, but we couldn't build all of this custom dev, right? There's no way that they could handle having an order processing solution with accounting and make that custom dev and put the onus on her to like support and maintain it. So it was pretty obvious that it needed to be a product, and that's kind of where we're like, yeah, no, this needs to be a product. I think we need to go this route. So it kind of helped make that decision for us, and we just had to give her something where the product was helping her, not the other way around. You know.
That's really interesting. The product serving, helping you instead of the other way around. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Is that something that you're applying here with Element?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, right? The reason we're building this product is we want to serve obviously everybody who is trying to do their best for the associations. But when you think about product, outside of all the fun stuff, right? The features and everything that we want to talk about. We always want to talk about the features when it comes to product. Inside, one of the things that Vish and I talked about were what are the foundational principles that we want to build, what we want to deliver in building this product. And we landed on three pretty fundamental areas that we focus on when we build our product. The first is simplicity, right? Not everybody in the association, in an association, knows database management, right? So it's got to be simple. They got to be able to use it. I was thinking about whether or not my mom and dad could go in there and use the tool. The second piece is making sure it's scalable, which is kind of a double-edged sword because like it's got to be scalable, but at the same time it has to be stable. So marrying scalability with stability. And then the last one is we've got to be able to iterate. We've got to be able to iterate. We've got to be able to do that fast, and it's got to be in a manner that you can trust. And so thinking about those three pillars and giving examples of that, the first, if we go back to that first customer, when we got in there, I mean, we're looking at the environment. She had a table of data for pro formas. She had a table of data for invoices, a table of data for payments, a table of data for refunds. It was just like a lot of tables of data. And when you think about them, you know, they're fundamentally different things. So it makes sense, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But we understood what the problems were. Like it was really hard for her to understand if she had a refund assigned to a specific pro forma, as an example. It wasn't easy for her to see that. She had to kind of navigate to the right areas of the database to see that, which also meant that reporting was just a pain, right? All these tables of data, you had to kind of like bring them all together. So multiple reports and then kind of stringing them together to make any kind of meaningful data analysis. And so when we were looking at it, we said, you know, how do we make this easy, right? We're going to build this order kind of processing tool. How do we make this as simple as possible? And when you look at like invoices and pro forma, it's kind of simple. You can marry those two together and put it one table of data. But when you think about everything else that comes with order processing, payments, refunds, discounts, adjustments, like they're all, like I said before, like they're all fundamentally different. So I totally get wanting to put them on different tables. But what are they really doing? What we landed on was the invoice gives you a balance due, and all of these different functions are trying to bring that balance due down to zero. And so we realized that we can just make it one table. And if we were to do that and simplify it, kind of make that abstraction layer, which we called activities against an invoice activities, you can go to one place and see, oh, here's the payment, here's the refund, here's a credit that we applied, a discount, all those different functions against that invoice in one place. What did that do for our customer? Super easy to find, super easy to understand what happened, and very easy to report. And the other piece of that is that it was really easy for us that we're building the journal entry service, right? The things, all the logic that is creating every journal entry that happens with all these different functions, it's all reading from one place. So our logic is really quite simple. It's not this overblown logic that has to read from all these different tables of data. So from an engineering perspective, that made our lives simple as well. So that's a good example of making the complex a little bit more simple. Flexibility with stability. Salesforce in and of itself is flexible. I mean, that's why we use this tool. It's amazing. It's awesome. I love using Salesforce because I can solve any problem that I want using like Salesforce flows and like all the different tools that they have. It's amazing. But the problem there is because you can do that, you really get to make that database your own, right? You get to make sure that it works the way that you want it to work. The question is, does it work the way that Element wants it to work? Because as you're building these customized, whatever it is that you wanted to customize, if you're interacting with Element or you're doing these customizations on top of Element, and tomorrow Element releases a feature that requires you to do a specific thing, this customization no longer knows, right? Like it has no idea that we're pushing that out. So how do you marry the two? The best example of that for us was a membership application. So sometimes you call it a member join, or we like to call it a member journey. Basically, your onboarding of members. Okay. Um, Salesforce has this amazing tool that it's called Flows. That basically it allows you to build the journey the way that you want. It's dynamic. It has the forms that you need. It has uh, it has that conditional logic that you want to mess with. But it's missing a few of the elements that you need for membership. Okay, but really you can almost build the whole thing by yourself. But if you were to do that, again, we don't know what element needs. You would be writing all these records over to our database and we would not know about it. So what we did is we built the building blocks that you would need to kind of do all of those things. What kind of building blocks am I talking about? Like creating a membership, creating the invoice, creating renewals, a product listing, a donation. All of these things that are typically fundamentally a part of the membership join, but really interact with the records in our database. We provide those to our customers and the system integrators so that they can use them as they're making that experience their own and the member journey the way that they wish without going away from the product, because we're actually testing those components every day, like 7 times a day, so you can trust that you can really customize that database to be your own and then still be on the product upgrade path. And so that brings me to the last point. Speaking about testing is being able to iterate and being able to trust and be fast on it. Okay. The last major point, you know, our customers can't wait a year for a product release. They can't wait 3 months to get a bug or a patch out. So we need to make sure that we are able to deliver that. Our story about this customer, as we were building with the order processing and accounting solution, it got really big really quickly, and we were testing a lot of this manually. We got to a point where it was critical mass. We just could not. We could not like continue to grow. So grow and then test the way that we were. So we stopped the press. We ended up partnering with some of Salesforce's experts in the space for development operations, and we completely architected our infrastructure and our basically our framework, which allowed us to spin out environments like at the click of a button, which is amazing. We ran a full automation test suite every time we did that. And basically our engineers are getting a feedback loop almost like in real time. So they write code, they commit it, they're waiting minutes, not days or hours to get that feedback and know whether or not they're creating a bug. So, once we did that for that customer, we were looking at the product. We just developed this product. We're watching them use it. They're live. And we noticed, we didn't hit the nail on the head on on this one particular feature, and we had to go back and revisit it. It took us about a month to make the changes that we needed to, but we were able to do that, deploy it into their environment. They had no idea, and now the system was working the way that we originally intended to, and it was pretty amazing. And that speaks to us being able to be reactive to our customers, which is one of the biggest points about the iteration. We have to be able to react to the needs and the requests of our customers in a timely manner, and it's got to be something we can trust. So, that foundational investment was paramount to the success for, I think, Element as well as our customers.
So, Chris, just listening to you talk about it sounds super easy. Why didn't we just do this before? Easier said than done, right? And really, it's been a Herculean effort from both Vish and you, Chris, and the team, the product team, in getting us to this point. But, Vish, why haven't you just, you got Big Bear AI, Wiz AI, why didn't you just build another one of those companies and serve them? Why are you serving associations?
Well, clearly there was an opportunity and somebody was ready to give me money. That's hands down the number one reason. But the other reason was really about the people. And there's a backstory that before I get to talk about people was I come from a very engineering background, and I was not good at core engineering, computer engineering concepts, but I was really good at logic. And somewhere around in 2010, I got introduced to Salesforce, and it completely changed my life because what happened was now I didn't have to worry about the complexity of security, complexity of database management. There's so many other application layer complexities. I could simply focus on the business value that I had to provide to someone, and it changed the game of how I look at how to build applications. So with that background, fast forward to when I got in customer support, which is basically my game-changing moment of my life, because not only started seeing the challenges that people face, but also the connections that I built, right? Like there would people be reaching out like, hey, I have my event and my ticket price is not coming up right. Can you just help me look at this? Or like somebody is going through the challenge of, hey, I have 25,000 renewals to go out and my renewals did not work. Like what happened over there, right? And so many a times for some of these challenges that came up, uh, like we spend weekends and nights together trying to look at these problems with these customers. But more than that, I built connections with these individuals. And some of them I actually, even till today, I have text messaging exchange with them, like saying hello or just catching up and things like that. And so whenever I was going through that challenge um, with the customer of what problem that they were facing, most of these customers never were like so focused on the problem. They were like, hey, how do I just get to the next stage? And it was that which really got me connected with each one of them. And so I have the technology background, I have the ability, I have the opportunity, and these are my people. I've found my people. And so what can I do for them? And so it just became natural to serve this space. What about you, Chris? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. I mean, you know, I didn't mean to fall into the association space at all. It was just kind of happened. But my background is in accounting. It was a totally different thing. I was doing taxes. Who likes to do taxes? Nobody. But it was a different thing because I was helping people save money, in a from a tax perspective, which is fine. Some of these people are doing amazing things for people. I'm helping doctors and things like that. But it didn't have the same feel, right? Here, we're serving an industry that's trying to make people's lives better and trying to make the world a little bit of a better place. That is something that I like to kind of makes me feel good at night that we're building tools that helps people really try to make a difference. So that to me is awesome. But I agree with you, Vish. Like we've been in this space for, you know, over 10 years now. You start making those connections. Even the competitors that we have, I'm friends with, right? Going to a conference, seeing them across the aisle, you know who they are. And it's a nice space. I like this space a lot. And yeah, I don't know. Feels like home now. So
It does feel like home. That is the one of the nice parts that I like about working in this space. But both of you said associations, and I think everyone on the call knows that's a wide swath of groups. You've got NGOs, you've got professional and trade member-based association, healthcare, bar associations. Who would best benefit from really using and utilizing Elements tools?
yeah, yeah, a lot of different verticals in the association space. It's not just associations, is it? No, so great question. Whenever we get asked or I get asked that question, we do professionals well, professional associations well. They love the individual membership kind of journeys that we built. A lot of our individual membership functionality works great for them. We're focusing on certifications that's coming out pretty soon. So we're doing a lot of the features and functionality where professionals would really thrive using our tool. Um, we're getting a lot of activity from trades too. Trades are really seem to like the product as well, which is nice. But also, whenever I answer this question, I also think about those organizations that have like company memberships. So, if you've got membership flow down, right? You have an org membership where it flows down to your members, or you have membership assignments to specific individuals, or maybe you're an organization that's buying a group of individual memberships, that's something that we really focus on. And I've been guilty of this, when you think about an association, a lot of times we really, really focus on the member, and that's the individual. And that's because that's where it is, right? That's the heart of where all of this lies. But so often I think we focus so much about that we forget how to make sure that we're catering to the organizations that bring those individuals to us. And so we really wanted to focus on that, which is why, those types of memberships that you might have, we do a really good job with that. We built functionality that speaks to that with roster management and admin portal and things like that. So if organizations have that organizational membership structure, they should come and talk to us for sure.
Yeah, and like we're actually really excited and proud also about what we have done on that front, because now with that company admin and organization setup, like you can just open it up to multi-sites, chapter communities, chapter management, Chris, volunteer management, right? The rosters.
Yeah, exactly, Vish. Yeah, because you've got the roster functionality that you're going to need. You need a space for these different groups to interact. It might not make sense for them to be in the same space that an individual might be in, or a company admin. It might be completely vastly different, and you want to make its own look and feel and have their own kind of area to interact with others, as well as provide information and data to you, and for you to provide information and data to them. So yeah, no, 100% chapters. I always forget that. So good. Thanks for that, Vish.
And we're talking about all this great functionality, all these new features rolling out, but let's turn our conversation a little bit and let's talk about a client that we've onboarded on Element. Why don't you give me a little insight with a client, some of the pains that they experienced and problems that we solved, goals that we met with them?
Oh, I got to talk about infectious diseases.
The association.
Yes, IDSA. There are two IDSAs, but there's infectious diseases. Everything that Chris just talked about, component architecture, better data structure. There are two examples I'm going to talk about. We did a lot more, but like these two examples would really mirror of what happened. One is like their membership renewal and onboarding, and the other is self-service and integrations. So talking about member journey, however that happened to have happened in the previous AMS that IDSA was using, like they had this a la carte option of selecting a membership to join or in a renewal journey, right? And we all know, like if I get an a la carte option, I'm looking at the cheapest option because the benefits are the same, right? And so so they were having all these members that would continue picking the student option for renewal, which was one of the cheapest options for them to get onto. Not only that, like there were times when, like, say this is 2025 and there was a renewal invoice that was sent to someone, and they looked up in their email and they found a 2022 email of the renewal invoice, and they would just go and pay for that invoice. And what happened, like the pricing of the membership changed amongst all these years, and so all of a sudden somebody's getting a membership in the old price. Forget of the system design behind the scenes, right? Like the developers might have not even thought what to do if somebody pays an old invoice, or what should you do, right? And so the data then leads to some odd state. I would not just say bad in this scenario. And all of that was leading to tremendous stress during renewal cycles. They had a calendar membership, and they literally reached to a stage where their admin had to data load renewal invoices. Now, just take a step back and reflect on this thought, right? You have a global organization, global members, thousands of members, and you are relying on this one individual in your staff to data load. The entire membership renewal revenue is in the hands of this individual. Like imagine the stress on the shoulders of this individual of having it right, right? Of course, you can have the checks and balances, validation, and everything. But like, at that time, just taking the action and getting it right is stressful. Like it could be stressful for me, forget anybody else, right? And so that was a big pain point. And everything that Chris talked about, our component architecture, we actually rethought their membership types, literally, in our entire implementation process. And so, and we also talk about our renewals. Like we were so focused on making renewals fast, like we really advertised 10,000 renewals in 10 minutes. And that is exactly what happened. Fast forward to the most recent renewal cycle that they went through our system. Like it almost like they felt like they were hallucinating, right? They don't have to do anything to
Right.
for the renewal. And so uh, they just had to make sure that they are really in this new age where they don't have to do anything. So they actually staged their renewals across multiple days, which our software allowed them to do that. And so they just said, all right, I got my these many members renewed. And so all they were focused on was now validation reports. Here's what I expected from the result, and here's what I'm getting. Everything looking good, and the renewals were created. So that was one big major change that we helped them do. The second, on the self-service and integration one, that really ties into the whole component architecture, like that Chris has been talking about. They wanted to make the member portal their own, expand, modify, customize, and that's where all our multi-site theming and everything comes into play. One example of that was IDSA has all of these affiliations with hospitals that have medical programs. And there are students as part of these programs, and those students are natural potential members for IDSA in the future. So what they wanted to enable is these program directors to come in and feed the student data into the system by themselves, which then we set up the whole process where they would get a membership for the time that they are in the program. And as soon as the program ends, they just get a renewal invoice to become a member of IDSA, right? And so this actually took off so much work from their end, and they got much more clean data from the program directors of the program, the participants of the program, the history of the participants, membership, and renewal, right? All of this, what I've been talking about, is getting rich data into the system that allows the organization to act on it, right? So with this rich data, the next thing that happened was they were using an external tool for events, in this case, the annual conference. Again, a big pain point, because these members who were incorrectly flagged, or they were not getting the right data points because they paid for the 2022 invoice in 2025, right? All of a sudden, they have paid. They should be a member, but the system didn't log them as that. And so when they are registering to the external vendor for the annual conference, they were getting a high amount of support tickets saying, hey, I'm not getting my member price, right? So that entire process of exchange of data with the event tool was streamlined and simplified. That allowed fewer support tickets and a better experience for their members, and also for IDSA for hosting the conference. So those are the two big major points that I really talk about with people, of what we saw and felt ourselves as we were walking through with IDSA and our product.
I've experienced that too on the member side, trying to sign up for the student membership still, and it's letting me, why not pay the lowest price? You know, these are great success stories, especially with the IDSA that you've given me, but I want to dig a little deeper. What are some processes and some methods that were used by the team to reach these goals?
Ooh, I'll talk of two examples in that scenario. One is on how we implement, and I'll talk about a very good experience that happened in that story. Probably good for me, I don't know. You have to tell me if it was good from your eyes, but and also data migration. But we're really rethinking of what it means to implement an AMS, because you're here for this product for 10, 20 years, right? And this implementation is the most important because it's the start of the journey. So as an example, let me just talk about address management, right? what happened in IDSA scenario was they had all these requirements for, hey, I have a billing address requirement, a journal address. I should be able to have a journal address. I should be having a home address, work address, and fine. Those are the four requirements. I can easily give you the four addresses. But then you come to integrations, and the integrations say, hey, if I donate to the foundation, I need to capture the home address. If I am having activity for advocacy, I need to get the PAC address. I need to connect to Quorum, and the Quorum would provide me a different address. All of a sudden, now we are talking of 7, 8 different addresses. Now, if I had to just get the requirement sheet, do a discovery, get the questions, and just check the box as mark the requirements as done, as an engineer, I could have just straight away walked in and said, oh, this is my home address. Here's how you enter your PAC address. What we would have left the customer with is nothing but a noodle soup of addresses, right? We actually went through about 5 iterations to really holistically see through how this experience should be, not only for IDSA, but even from the integration standpoint. What do we need to do behind the scenes, as well as from the members' experience, what they should have the experience of capturing. So at the end of the day, what we landed up designing was literally just 3 addresses that they could provide as preferences of where each of those addresses are being used. And we would have not reached there if we didn't have this process of brainstorming and iterating over it. And the biggest piece I feel also is our fixed price methodology really helped, because now IDSA was not focused on the hours of us just continuing to build these hours, but they were more focused on adding value. Now, as you see in this example, right, what really I'm trying to drive is we do a modular implementation approach. And so what happens is when you implement the first module and the customer is interacting with you, they get to see and experience Salesforce, Element, our thought processes. And so once we implement the module and get things right, all of a sudden, all of these other requirements that they had, they start seeing them as in new light. And they no longer are now like the requirements or the user stories, things like that, right? It just becomes a checklist, but we are really thinking hard on how they evolve their thought process of achieving that checklist versus making it a task list that has to be achieved, right? And so that's what we really changed with IDSA and what we believe and we do for our customers. The second thing is data migration. This one is the toughest one because most of the customers know their data, right? But I would say they know their data at about 80%. 20% of the data, like it just is there, not visible, or like you're just irritated or frustrated that you don't know how to report better on that, right? And so what we really do with our customers is once we get the data from them for a specific purpose, we actually study that data and we evaluate and we identify where the gaps are, because what we want to do is when you get to Element, we really want you to have a rich history of information in the terms of how Element reads the data, not in the terms of how you had the data, right? So there has to be a transformation of all of this data in Element speak as well as make it rich, right? And to make it rich, we really need to analyze and have conversations with the customers, which we really do in the format of, hey, how can we think about this data point and transform it? And then they go back to the drawing board and really think hard, what should I be doing? So that really helped. Like, for example, we enabled IDSA with rich account data, and now they actually are able to see the number of members affiliated with one account versus previously they could not run that report. Is as simple as that. And so that's an effort, but it's a journey where we make sure that customers get rich data from day one when they start with Element.
Which is funny because it feels like it felt in a recent experience that I had, it felt like the expectation was, oh, when I give you the data, you're just going to put that in there, right? And I didn't realize how it wasn't kind of being conveyed to the client and the consultant that was helping on that project. But I was like, what is going on? Why are they asking so many questions? I was like, we just want to look at the data so we can analyze it with you, you know? And they're like, oh, you're going further deeper than just moving it in. Like, oh yeah, no, we want to make sure that the transformation makes sense. If we find things that don't make sense, we're going to send it back to you and we're going to have a conversation about that. Like, oh, okay. So it just felt like we were taking a step further, which is, you know, we think necessary and it has to happen, but it is definitely part of the service that we provide when we do the data transformation. So
Above and beyond.
yeah.
I really liked listening to what both of you had to say because, really you were hearkening back to that first, message that of the technology serving humans instead of the other way around. So that kind of nicely tied it all back. But, I want to turn it back on to both of you to kind of give me like a theme of the conversation we've had today.
we we really think we've really been thinking hard on these points, and like if I had to say in simplest format, like we really focused on the simplicity of what it means to be on the AMS, scalability, which is why we picked Salesforce, and how we develop to make sure it's scalable, and resilient, because we want you to make this your own product, but at the same time, you want to provide the bug fixes, the enhancements, new features without breaking your stream. So simple, scalable, reliable.
Get off my lines, Fish. Get off my that's my section. Well, I can't really add to that, but no, it's true. I mean, those are three of the big pillars of our product, and so it means a lot. It is a big full focus for us in making our customers' lives easier.
I completely agree. At this point, we have a few more minutes left. I kind of want to turn it on to the audience for any questions. But I do want to thank everybody for not only attending, but staying through the whole webinar. We really appreciate that. If any of you want to continue the conversation, you like what you heard, we'd be more than happy to continue, set up some time with you. Feel free to message either Vish or I. But at this point, I'm going to turn to the chat to see if there are any questions. And I do have one so far. My first question, I guess I'm going to put to the panel, both of you. Talked about functions that we have. What's something on the product roadmap that you're really excited about? You get up in the morning, you're like, I can't wait to start working on this and get this out to the community.
I'm taking that one, Vish. Man, so we just dropped rosters, and rosters is good, but we're iterating already. Okay, so we dropped it. It's functioning. It's really interesting how the customer that is consuming it already has already come up with creative ways of using it. But there's feedback in some of the functionality that they wanted, where they really wanted to make it a lot more dynamic. And basically, we're tying some of Salesforce's standard functionality into it to make it really robust. And that leads into our certifications module. Uh, our rosters are already robust, but it's going to be like, I'm super excited about what's dropping, because it's really going to be a neat tool for anybody to really meet the requirements that they might have when it comes to the way that they interact with the rosters and how they want to do different functions. So I want to transfer a member from one person to another. I want to cancel somebody, or maybe I need to mark somebody that's no longer going to be here, but I know that they're, any kind of process that you might want to add to it is going to be available. It's not just a form of, oh, I want to edit, I want to add new. It's a lot more robust than that. And that same kind of that same functionality is going to lead into certifications and accreditations, where, it's really hard to nail down what every requirement is for every association that does certifications. It's so hard to like build that box for everybody to fit in. And so the way that we're going to do that, we're going to meet those requirements, is partnering with Salesforce and using that flows functionality that really will allow you to do some conditional logic in meeting those really tough requirements and the things that we can't plan for. So when a customer comes to surprise us, I hope that we're going to have that answer ready for them. So I'm really excited to see that work in real time.
We have another question here from the audience. What are your plans for incorporating AI into the product?
That's a great one. We actually have already experimented with AgentForce, Salesforce's AI tool. We've been able to create orders, look up contact information. Like the CEO of the organization was traveling and they wanted to go to Atlanta, and they wanted to find all the members that they want to speak who are the most engaged. And they could look those contacts up in a seamless way based on their engagement. So there are multiple use cases that you can implement using AgentForce on top of a product. Within the product, we have not yet designed an experience, but we are brainstorming certain experiences that relate to file upload and roster management is one example. But we are also open to other thought processes. Again, we are very customer focused, customer driven development right now. And so as our customers bring use cases, that's what we are going to prioritize with their partnership and build that.
So
Yeah.
I had a
Yeah,
question.
the roster upload piece is a really interesting one. We're rounding out the roster functionality, and how do you evaluate the files that people are uploading, right? We want to be able to upload a roster into the database, but we also need you to put in the right columns in the right format in the right way. How do we make sure that that end user knows what to do? We envision utilizing AI in a way to guide them as kind of like a guiding way of, oh, hey, I noticed you put this column in here. This column needs to be, and it gives them some guidance on how best to do that. So um, that's one of the types of ways that we've been coming up with, but we're really curious to hear what everybody else is coming up with too.
I do want to make sure we get to Alan's question. Another one just popped up. Alan said, hey, hi, Vishal and Chris. Can you talk about the ability to limit membership records to one per person so members don't repeatedly join versus renewing their existing membership? A major challenge with Salesforce platform AMS products is that one, many relationships between contact and membership, it makes calculating retention and join rates very difficult.
We solved this. Hey, Alan, we solved this for the other IDSA. uh, So yes, the way we have designed our system today ensures that if a membership has been renewed, our system will prevent you from renewing it, or will create a next future renewal. So automatically, let's say if they renewed 2024 once, and now they got a 2025 renewal, and they try to renew 2024 again, they'll end up getting the 2026 renewal. And that's how we have designed it right now. And you have control if you want to allow that or disallow either of them. But basically, you cannot, you won't get a duplicate. In instances, for random reasons, if you'll end up having duplicates, we actually even designed the duplicate detection of renewals based on the terms, and you would be able to report, hey, here are the duplicates that I got from random sources, and you can report on them.
That's awesome. And another one, can you talk about your approach to maintaining and updating documentation, both technical and user guides? For example, how do you ensure that they stay current with the product changes and remain easy for users to follow?
So, Chris, I'm going to give it to you, but I also wanted to talk about that in a format of, so Chris made a reference to this individual that we tapped into from the Salesforce ecosystem, and he really presented us this thought process of product delivery model. What it means basically is when you work on one set of feature and ticket, you're basically making sure everything associated with that ticket that is impacted, your demo orgs, your test orgs, your documentation, your exploratory testing, everything is taken care of with that ticket. It's not, hey, get this ticket done, ship it, hand it over to the next person, that person will test it. That it's not a supply chain process. It's actually a holistic approach of completing it. So what we are doing is, as we are building tickets based on how that ticket is impacting the documentation, that documentation is getting updated before it gets to the customer.
Yeah, on another end of that, it's a great question, and it's funny how it's right after an AI question, because if it wasn't for AI, that would be a very difficult thing to do at this point in time, or very early on for us, just wearing all the hats as you do when you're starting off. But one of the ways that I use AI, and the product team uses AI, it really helps with the design piece of it. Writing our tickets are paramount, right? So when we're doing our development and writing the tickets and the requirements for development, we make sure that we put it in a format that we can feed into AI, that AI can help us spit out some of the documentation. I wish that it was perfect every time. It is not. It takes a lot of time to go through it and come through it. So it's not perfect. We haven't perfected that system yet, but it has helped a great deal. Just in thinking about any design, a lot of times we're utilizing Claude and GPT and various AI tools that help us kind of document that out. And they're not perfect. I think anybody who's used AI has seen that, but it does help take a lot of the burden of the writing out, and it really does help us with feeding some of the documentation that we want to spit out to our end users.
It looks like we're out of questions and also out of time. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited that you were able to spend some time with me and the co-founders. Now, if you have any questions that we didn't get to, or if you wanted to continue the conversation, please feel free to email me at sean@elementams.com or vishal@elementams.com. I hope everyone has a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.